numbered this incorrectly. This is number 4. Hello, Gillian is back.
Hello.
She is still learning and doing very well. Thank you very much. This is Gillian's project that we're doing. We very kindly have been loaned some samples from Natasha Makes, and we are going to be showing you what they've done, and I'm going to show you how it is that you now get to the next phase. The lovely Gillian is going to continue being our camera lady. Hello, darling. Meant to ask you, were there any live feed chats through the thing?
I didn't see any chats.
Okay, all right.
So
if there are any chats and we don't get to them, her fault.
I'm sure they were.
It's her fault.
Always my fault.
Right, we are going to show you how you start at the very beginning. When you got your kit, you would have been sent a little bit over 6.5 meters or 6.25 meters of the Quilters grid. Now, one thing to show you on the Quilters grid is, what is it? Now, Gillian, can you come as close as the camera will allow you to my hands? Closer, 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 closer.
Ooh.
So, on this side here, I rub my hand on it. It's nice and silky smooth. It's got a grid on it. If I flip that over, it's not quite as visible, but when I rub my hand on it, you can actually see those little bumpy dots. This is a glue adhesive. This is not a glue adhesive. So this is considered the right side. This is considered the wrong side. So you always put the wrong side of your fabric to the wrong side of the quilter's grid, so that when you've glued it on, you've got the right side of your fabric out this way and the right side of your quilter's grid out this way. So that is how you go there. Now we're going to get Gillian to zoom me backy outie.
Okay.
Zoom me backy outie. I'm up here. I love it. Right. When you measure across here, it'll be a little bit over 36 inches, as you will see on my cutting board. And when I say a little bit over, you can see, if you look over there, it's a little bit over, and then this bit is 36 inches. Now, one thing to remember is we need 36 inches along the way, because the length of the that we're doing in the pattern is 18. 18 times 2 is 36. But when I count out the blocks here, I've only got 35 full squares. So we remember that now, and it's important that we know that, because when you start pressing this down, you know that one of your squares is only going to be on half of a quilter's grid. Don't worry, that's absolutely fine, because when you look over here, you've got more than ½ an inch over here to put one of your squares on. So don't worry about that. This is already 36 inches, so you're absolutely fine. You're going to make 9 pieces. So you're going to take your quilter's grid. We're going to, now obviously I know that that's 36 inches long, and I'm going to measure, I've got to count out 28 grids going the other way, because there are 14 squares, so you need to cut out 28. Now, in order to make your life easier, you want to make sure that you've got 28 full blocks. So what I've done here, as you can see, hopefully, I've lined this up with number 28. I've got a little bit of squiggly bits on the end there, but I count out 28 all the way along here, and that comes to my 0 line. Does that make sense? Can you see that?
Yep.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Shusha?
Yep.
So all I'm doing next is, you can do this on a cutting board, you can do this with scissors, whatever works best for you. What would work best probably is if I get this lined up. Okay, and I put my ruler on the top to hold it down, and I know I'm from 28 all the way along. So what I'm going to do is, instead of cutting into the line there, I'm going to go halfway past 0 and then cut down that piece over there. Okay, I would open your quilter's grid out and not fold it in half, just in case you go a little bit skew. That way then you're not messing anything up. Okay, so this is going to give you a scale of how big you're cutting this. But don't get too scared, because once you stitch your seams in, you're going to lose ½ an inch on most of the blocks, because obviously seam allowance gives you that little bit of leeway. Now, if like me, you like to be incredibly organized and get everything done at the same time, this is number 1. You take your piece of paper, you take your thing, you take a pen, and you write in the top corner over here, number 1. It helps if you don't write on the glue side. I didn't, but just in case. You might want to use a Sharpie, because it's absorbent. just write down number 1. It'll make your life a lot easier when you come to figure out
Ah,
which block is which. You're like, what on earth? So I've marked number 1, okay? And I always mark them in the same corner because I know that's going to be my top. Okay, so that's going to be the size of our blocks. You can go ahead now and cut all 9 of them out. That's absolutely fine. I'm not going to do that because
no, I get to do it
you've got
myself.
to do it yourself. But equally, you've got more important things to be doing than watching me cut out Quilter's grid. You see me do 1, you measure out another 28 inches, line it all up. Gillian, I'm trying to fold this now.
It's all right. Just we'll sort it now.
There we go. But then just make sure that you keep this in a nice cool place. Try not to get it too warm because the last thing you want is that the glue starts activating on the paper. So make sure you keep this in a nice cool place. It's very hot at the minute. Right, so we're now going to go over to the ironing board. And we're going to see it from a different angle.
So socially distanced to the ironing. Hey, rude.
Right. So this now takes a little bit of organisation. You can sit on the chair, you should be right. This takes a little bit of organisation. So the first thing I've got, as I showed you in the last video, I've got my little Amazon clipboard thingy, standy thingy mabobby, and I've got my ruler. Now, when we did the video before, I showed you that we've got 5 strips at the very beginning. 5 strips, so we know that this is right. Now remember, when we counted this out, we knew it was going to be a little bit over. That's worked out exactly. 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's 36 is the other way, you silly man. One, 2, 3. Never mind, I know what I'm doing now. So, when we counted this out, remember we had 35 full blocks and then we had a little bit left over. What I'm going to do for ease, this has got quite a big space at the top. I'm going to line my 28 by 10 inch piece of fabric. I'm going to line that up past the gap over here because my gap at the top there is quite big for the Quilter's grid. So what I'm doing is I'm lining up on, if I fold this back, you'll see I'm counting down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm lining the fabric up to the number 10 line down here.
Is it just inside the 10 line or on the
Just
10 line?
Inside. Well, if you can get it on, fantastic. If you can't, that's okay. But I'm lining it like this. Now, at my eyeballs, look deep into my eyes. Okay, all of you, look deep into my eyes. Pressing and ironing are 2 totally different things. My iron is demonic and it only does steam. I can't turn it off. So you want an iron with no steam. You are going up, down, up, down. That's it. You do not go boop, 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 boop. You will stretch it. This Quilter's grid does stretch. You've got to be careful. It's up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Please be warned. You've got to make sure you get it right because the last thing you want is for it to be stretching along the way because when you come to put them together, one of your blocks you may have up, down, up, down, up, down, and the other one you go bloop, 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 and the one will be longer than the other ever so slightly. It's just because of the, it's fabric. Everything will stretch if you stretch it enough. Now, use a Teflon sheet if you have one, baking parchment, anything like that. Do whatever works best for you. I'm putting this down on top of here, and I've lined this all up, so I'm doing my first 5 over there. And I've just realised I'm not sure I can get there with the iron being as it is. So we are now putting the Teflon sheet in the right place, and I'm taking this and I'm putting this down, and we are counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Boop. Okay, we peel it back to check that it's worked, and it has because it's activated on the Teflon. And then again, I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I lift up. Okay. Again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You lift up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You lift up. Now, if you're using squares, that is absolutely fine. Many people have already cut all your squares out. We're going to show you how it is you line your squares up in the next rows. Oh, pardon me. Pardon me.
Bless you.
And then when you get to the end of your Teflon sheet, I put the back of my iron, which is flat, on there, and then I line it up that way. And you go all the way along. Now, the reason you're using the Teflon sheet is obviously you were using a sticky adhesive. If you did use the sticky adhesive and the glue came through, it can gum up your iron. Okay? So all I'm doing now is I'm peeling that off, and if I gently pull that, you can see it's all completely down. With your Teflon sheet, try and always use the glue on one side. There's nothing worse than getting a bit of glue on there, turning it around, then putting your iron on it. And the whole point of doing a Teflon mat is not getting glue on your iron. So try and make sure that you get that right. And literally up, down, up, down. You're holding it down for about 6 to 8 seconds. Different irons work at different temperatures. My irons drop down in temperature a little bit, so it might take a little longer than if it was on the full pelt with the steam, but you do not want to be using steam on this process. Nice and simple. And there we go. Only one more set of series of these to go, and we are almost ready. Now you can see if we have cut a big giant strip, you've just done 5 lines of the 14, and they are ready to go. You've only got 9 left to go.
Woohoo!
But there are 9 blocks, so don't get too excited. There's still a little bit to do. Okay, so we now peel this back, and the easiest way to check if this works, okay, are we ready? This is when it all falls apart. It's held on. Okay. So try not to manipulate this too much, only because it can come loose and it can fall off. It's only glue. If it does happen, all you do is you just peel. So you can see this one here hasn't quite stuck. So you just literally take your iron, hold it down, and go from there. Now you don't need to use a Teflon sheet. You don't need to use baking parchment. All I would say is that every time you do use it, check that there's no glue on your iron. In case there is, just leave an old cloth on the side and literally just rub it like that on the cloth, and then you can check your iron is clean. But I do advise you, this is an expensive kit, a lot of really beautiful fabric here. Do not get schmutz from the iron onto the kit, because you'll cry, because then you're going to rip
I can imagine.
And if you rip it off, you're going to rip the quilter's grid as well, which is never fun. Right, so we've done up to that line over there. Can we see that there? We are on this block over here, and we've now finished that line, which is number 5. I then take my little pad and I move it down a little bit, and all of them are number 1, except for the 4th one in is number 24. Now, at my little cutting station over here, you can see I've got 23, 24, 25, 32. I know I just need 1 number 24, and I need 13 of number 1. So there's 4, 8. Oh, there's more than 4 there. Oh gosh, that was perfect. There's 5. So, looking back on the pattern over here through the grid, if I hold that down, I've got 3.
Hold on.
3 of the peacock.
Yeah.
I'm not sure you can see that.
No, you can see.
So you've got 3 peacocks starting from the left-hand side. So if you rotate the camera this way, Gillian.
Yes, dear.
You can see I'm putting number 1, number 2, and number 3. And then we're putting in, we double check, this is fabric number 24, and we're popping number 24 in. Now this is an easy row, number 1, they're just sort of easing you into it all. And now you're going to put your strip down. Now if you're clever, if you do think about this, hello.
Sorry.
Hello. If you're clever, you can do what the lovely team at Natasha Makes did. And for this row, you can cut a 20-inch strip, put your green in, and then you can do a 6-inch strip. So you can very easily cut strips all the way along. This one, just for sake of ease, I'm going to show you by using all the little squares. So we're going to pop the squares in, because I think it's nice to also see how you're doing this, if you're going to be doing all the squares. And also, if you've cut all the squares out, I don't want you to feel bad. This is exactly what you should be doing. It is per the pattern, but as a wanting to save a little bit of time where I can, I thought it was better to do it that way. Okay, so now we just need to be careful. So you've got two choices. You can now go and press that down now, or boom, 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 we're going to be challenging, and we're going to do the next one
I
at the
was just
same
going to ask
time,
that.
because I'm a bit lazy. So we go now and we look at the next row, which is number 7, all blue except for number 25, and then 2. So it's exactly the same as the row before, but we're obviously using fabric number 25, double check number 25, and it's 2 of the blue and 1 of number 25. Now I've got a big ironing board. You can take as much time doing this as you can. You don't need to do it on a giant big ironing board like this. If you haven't got an ironing board or anything like that, maybe you want to get one of those beautiful mats that you can buy. I know that the House of Alistair does a couple of these felt mats that you're very thin, and you can just put them on a dining room table. If you don't have anything like that, maybe some old towels. You can just lay some old towels down, and you can then just lay those on the dining room table, or kitchen table, or even on the floor. Just make sure you don't do what I did the first time I did that, and accidentally put your iron on the polyester carpet. Just don't. And if you're renting the house as well, try and do it under a cupboard so that they don't see it. Because doing it right in the middle of the floor, you can't even rearrange the furniture around it. Trust me, I know.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So there we go. We are now on row number 7. Now, come on, that didn't take very long at all. Again, I did the piecing, but on Natasha's, they very kindly lent me this to show. You can see
One strip.
they did long strips. Okay, so you can use the long strip method, and the way that it comes out is absolutely fine.
You could do a combination of that. You could do
exactly that.
the small ones on the side and the long ones on the long.
Gillian's doing here. Now we're going to. I'm going to be really adventurous. We're going to put 3 in a row, and we're going to do. Oh, 2 seconds. Maybe I should. So you can see we've now got 1, 24, 23, and then the rest are number 1. Okay. So we're going to line those up now. So I've got 1 blue one, and then the one next to it is number 24. That's number 24. And then the next one is number 23. We're now finally introducing number 23 to the program.
4 colours. Da, da, da.
Well, 5 technically.
Yeah.
No, 4. You're quite right. My bad.
4 greens, 1 blue.
There you go. It's petrol, if you a peacock, if you wish.
Yeah.
To be romantic. Now, can you tell this is actually going together really, really, really easily? I don't want to profess to you that this is the simplicity of the entire quilt. We'll get onto that in a moment. Now, you can see we've just got a little crinkle in that one. I wouldn't worry. Pop that in there. Do that. Then I've got my Teflon sheet again. And all I'm going to do is now... I'm up here. Hello. I love children. I love animals. Keep them away from this process, because one bump and everything moves out. Make sure before you glue everything down, the simplest thing to do, take your
Just
pattern,
double check.
check it. You won't do it. I know you won't.
Oh,
Nobody does. Lay it all out. No, I got that right. But double check it, because if you get it wrong, it's a pain peeling it off and doing all of that. It will come off. You can redo it. And if you do pop a hole in your quilter's grid, I'll tell you that in a little bit. But now all we're doing is we're checking. So if we double check here, I've got 3, number 24. I've got 2, number 25. I've got 1, 24, and 23. I double check. This is fabric 23. This is fabric 24. This is fabric 25. Okay? These are the rows that I've got in. So I'm happy with that. I'm happy to now go and take my little Teflon sheet.
Same side up as last time.
Exactly. It's like Gillian's paying attention. Now, as you lay it down, if you can, I don't know if the camera's picking that up. Can you see you've got movement over here?
Yep.
You don't want that. So just go back and check what's happened. It is possible your square's a little small. It is possible that we just moved everything around. It may have just moved around. But as you're looking at it, just check that if you have got any big white gaps, see why. If it's because your piece is too small, that's fine. Just be aware of it. And what I would say is that if it is too small, put it into the center of the gap. And by that I mean is that if you're 2 millimeters small all the way around, make it 1 millimeter, 1 millimeter, 1 millimeter, because that way then you're hiding the evidence accordingly. Quilter's Grid is phenomenally forgiving in this process. So all you do now is you lay your Teflon sheet down, exactly like before. You take it and you lay that on the board, and you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then move it over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Try very hard not to move it as you're going along, only because you do not want to stretch your fabric, you do not want to stretch your Quilter's Grid, and when it's very, very hot and you do accidentally move it, you do run the risk of simply just giving it a little bit of a tug in one direction, and that's not ideal. How are we on battery life? Can you plug it in just in case? Last thing I want to do is lose the battery halfway through all of that. Now when you get to the edge over here, we've counted that down and we've got 3, 2, 1. You lift that back up again and just simply peel the Teflon sheet back, making sure that you're not moving any of the squares. Now you can see that that's worked out really well, and the tiny little gaps here are easily within our seam allowance, allowance. And now we're just going to push that down over there. Now my iron is a little bit too cool, and by that you'll feel as you go that if this is just a little bit lukewarm, you may need to just turn your iron up like I have and just very simply go back over the process. We just want to make sure that everything sticks down and stays down, but no steam. My problem is with my little iron, the minute I get to a certain point of heat, the steam automatically comes. So I can hear the steam building at the moment. We're trying to avoid having the steam on this as we go. Okay, so we have now done, I'm going to do this little section over here as well. It's really difficult trying to get the right temperature on this iron, so apologies for that. Okay. So now all we do is we peel the Teflon sheet back, and I can feel that's much warmer. And I am just going to go over this a little bit over here because some of the corners haven't quite taken. And as you do this, you'll feel when you put your hand on it, it'll be very warm, but not unpleasantly burny. And if any of your pieces are giving away in the corner, you haven't quite stuck it down enough. So just give it a few seconds extra with your temperature, and you should be fine. So there we go, we've just finished now row 8, and we are now glued down to number 8. Now there are only 18 rows in this section as we go along. I've taken my grid off here, so now we're doing number 9. Now number 9 gets a bit more technical because we're starting with 32 in the edge. I'm pushing this a little towards you, Jill.
Sure.
Okay. 32. And then what colour is it?
25.
Number 25. I've kept these in sequential number, 32, 25, 24, 23, which I know where we are, because we're not going to do the whole quilt. If you don't have a ruler which has got these in, what I would suggest you do, just get your normal ruler as it was. Get some masking tape, put that over there, and then put some masking tape on this side, and then you've got your gap in the middle to be able to make it work. I'm a firm believer you don't need to go out and buy things for it. You can make do with what you've got at home, and I think things like masking tape and rulers do make things a lot easier, and they're easy to take off as well, so you can... Oh, we're at an angle now. Thanks, Julie. I feel like Aladdin. I'm on a magic carpet all the way along. Right, so we are on row number 9. We've got to make sure that we're doing this the right way. Row number 9, I've got 32 as my next, 32, 25. I've got 3 peacock. Now I'm starting from left to right. There is no right or wrong on this. You must do what works for you. I am not bothered one way or the other. I am not going to criticize or complain one way or the other. All I want is all your bits on the page. That's it. Ooh. All you want is there. Everything on there. So now we're going to do just one row at a time, just to show you how we can do it that way. It's a little longer, but having it a little longer makes it a bit more cautious. but it's your call. I personally prefer doing 2 or 3 at one time, but you must do what works best for you. Now we know that the rest of this line is all in the Peacock #1 fabric.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite sure what that noise from Gillian was, but we'll just go, hello Gillian.
It's the camera moving
Oh, is it the
down.
camera moving up and down? All
Yes.
right. She's whirring away. So there we go. We are now lined up for our second line. Actually, I'm not going to do what I've just said. I am going to do another line. No, it's what it is that it's. I don't love going over these multiple times. The quilter's grid with multiple times with it, and all I'm doing next is I'm going to do row number 10. Okay, so row number 10 is fabric number 25 in the corner, number 23,
1.
and then you've got 1, and then you've got number 25. Are you showing over here, my love? And number 23. So you got per the grid over here. I'll bring this closer. So you can see I've got 25, 23, number 1, 25 and 23. And then we've got a whole run all the way down. Now the one thing I did do for this prep was cut all of these out, but then what I didn't do was cut number 14 out. So it does make it easier to go and cut them all out at the same time. But what we'll do is we'll just do 2 lines on this one. And then we will show you what you need to be doing for the rest of the blocks. Okay, I personally wouldn't be doing less than 2 because the quilter's grid going over multiple times. It's better not to. You can, it just, I find it better that you don't. Okay, and when you have got to a point that you are going to be finished and you have done, what I would suggest that you do is in the corner over here, in your last line, just write down what number row you are in. And as far as I can tell, that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I would just put number 10 in the corner over here.
Oh, stunning.
So that you know where you are. And if you wanted to go ahead and number each row as you went down, you are most welcome to. So you can see I've now positioned these almost exactly as they should be. And we are now ready to take our Teflon sheet again. As Gillian rightly pointed out the last time, make sure when you've got a gluey bit over there that you don't put that at the top. You're leaving that back down to the fabric so that it doesn't damage your iron. Now, we're all going to do it. Have you seen what's happened? We've pulled this over, okay? It happens, the ironing cords go everywhere. Just when you do have a situation like that happen, double check you've done it right. So that's 24, that's 23, that's 32, that's 25. No, it's not. That's 32, that's 25, that's 25. Perfect. I'm happy with that. And then again, just like we've done all the way along now, pop that down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is good fun. It's really therapeutic and relaxing. Now these ones are really simple. You can see you've only got a handful of colours that you're putting down. Got a handful of colours, you're putting them down and you're going from there. What you do need to next do is it does get a bit more complicated. So once you get more comfortable with this, now at this point I'm going to go and have a cup of tea because I've done something. It's worked. I'm happy. Big fat smile on my face. I've done 10 rows. Boom. Okay. And I'm going to glue this down because I don't want to terrify you. I don't want to make you scared. But I'm gonna. Only because it does get complicated. But the methodology is identical. Every single thing that you're doing here, gluing it up, up, down, it's identical all the way along. Just like we've laid out these few handful of colours, you're going to do exactly the same thing. The only problem is you're going to end up with a lot more colours. And that's okay because you're just going to take your time. You're going to do it nice and slowly. There is no rush. So again, the wonderful team at Natasha Makes, thank you very much. I have got, sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. So this is what we're going to make, okay?
Oh.
This is just the one block. Now what I've started to do is once you've glued all of these down, I might need your hand there, Gillian. Can you just straighten that for me so it doesn't bend? Thank you. Once you've stuck all of these down, you're then going to start stitching it. Now this will be in episode 5. I will show you how to do it. But I know that there are going to be people out there who, look at me. I know you are sitting there going, but how can we finish? I want to start. Next step is really simple. I'm not going to do it today in full, but I know you're going to want to start. So the first thing you're going to do is, before you touch this with your sewing machine, before you touch it, you're going to practice your 1/4 inch seam. I don't care if it's 1/4 inch, a hair over, a hair under. You will be, look in my eye, you will be consistent. You've got to be consistent. And the reason being is that if you've got this consistency all the way along, when you come to put these blocks together, they're going to meet perfectly. If you use 2, 3, 4 different sewing machines, you do one row and do this, it's not going to be right, and it's going to be slightly off, and it's going to irritate you. If it isn't going to irritate you, crack on. I'm good with that. Do what you like. But do yourself a favor and just give yourself a fighting chance on it. Be consistent all the way along. And what you're going to do, if I can have you down here, you're going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam from the stitch line. So over here, you can see I've got two fabrics joining. So if there was no quilter's grid involved, you would just be joining these together anyway. And that is effectively what you're doing. And you're going to stitch all the way down this whole line. So we're going to pretend you're starting stitching from there and you're coming all the way up to here. Okay, that's the first line. That 1/4 inch is identical all the way along. Get old sheets, newspaper, whatever you like. Practice first. It's important you get that right. That's the only thing, that if you can get your 1/4 inch exactly consistent, I don't care if it's perfect, consistent, that's all we want. So this one you're going to sew from bottom to top, or left to right. The next one you're coming along, you're going to sew from right to left. Okay? If you sew these all in the same direction all the way along, it's going to start curving. And it's just, that is what happens with fabric. No one can give me a conclusive answer as to why, but going up and down is the easiest way to avoid that curve. So what you're going to do is you're going to do that up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, all the way along. Okay? And on here, up, down, up, down, up, down, all the way along. Okay? Please don't do the next bit. Please just do that. If you have to get ahead of it, don't go past this point, because the next point is a little bit more complicated, and I've got a few things to show you as tricks and things to make it a little bit easier for yourself. It may not work for you. You crack on, please. I want you to enjoy it, have fun all the way along. But that's a lot. Doing all 9 blocks, getting them all laid out, that's a lot. Okay, so this is row number 3. This is block number 3. And what I said to you as well, with the seam allowance, you can see this was 36 inches. And look, that's definitely come down because of the seam allowance all the way along. Okay, so this is, if you can get them to this stage, fantastic. But don't rush. We've got plenty of time. We're going to do these as we go along. Okay, so that's number 3. Now I'm going to show you number 2. Now number 2 is a lot more complicated than numbers 1 and 2. This is number 1. You can see, yep, we're getting a bit more interesting with our colors. We're getting a bit more on it. This is number 1. That's fine. But when you get to number 2, this is when it really starts getting interesting. Because what you're doing is, I've got to get this the right way around. Hang on, bear with. 1, 2, 3. Yep, so that is right. Okay. So you can see the first 2 rows, nice and simple. Third one, you've got 2 of the same, then you've got those. But as you start getting down towards this way, it gets a little more complicated. It's exactly the same technique, but you're using a lot more colors as you go. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. There's 10 colors in that row, but it's a lot more complicated, but only because it's exactly the same. What you're doing is you're just following the pattern. Sorry, we're on unit 3 of it. No, we're not. We're in unit 2. So you can see along here, it's all numbered just like before. So that's fabric. These 2 over here, 29, 29, 28, 28, 28. 25, 27, 36, 27. So you're doing exactly the same thing as you were for the block there, but you're just increasing the numbers as you go along. Unit number 4, I found a little bit scary. If you want to come closer, please. Number 4 got a little bit scary, but look, it's all the same color. They're all number 17. Unit 5, it's the same thing. It's terrifying. I looked at that and nearly had a seizure, thinking, are you actually kidding me? Look at all of that. Almost every single one is different. But you've got big lumps of 17 over here, but it's exactly the same thing. And when you just take your time and you break it down, And you've got row number 1, 26, 37, 23. Number 1, 43. Just lay them all out slowly. There's no rush. Just take your time. Have everything laid out and just take your time. Then you do the next row. Then you do the next row and you check everything's right, glue it down. Walk away. Go and have a cup of tea. Go and chill out for a little bit because you deserve it. And then just do the next 3 rows. But it's just this is the hardest block, I think. But then you get down to number 7, and look at that! You've got acres of fabric without having to have anything too complicated. So this does get a bit more stressful along the way. But I do just ask you, please make sure that you use a Teflon sheet if you've got one, baking parchment otherwise. Make sure you've got a nice flat surface to work on like this. Old towels underneath some ironing board on the table. Anything like that, just have a single large piece that's wide enough for you to be able to lay everything out and make your life a lot easier. Down, hold, up. Not down, up, don't. It'll stretch it and it's not worth it. And that is it. Now, you've got loads to crack on with to start with. We will be doing the stitching. Now, I've shown you how to do the stitching. If you are going to do the stitching, fantastic. What I would say to you is if you are going to do your stitching on these once you put them all, can you just leave the long end this way? So if you're going to be stitching, go across rather than up and down. If you're going to get ahead of yourself, go across rather than up and down. And there is a reason for that. And it's a little bit too complicated to add on to this video, and I wanted to make sure that everything was segregated that way. So next time we're here, we're going to do the stitching part of everything, and then on the last episode, we're going to be then piecing all 9 blocks together, and we've done the quilting on it, and in the 9th block as well, we haven't done anything about trimming a quilt down and things like that. So there may be a 6A of this as well to be able to do that as well. Thank you so much for joining us, Gillian. Again, thank you very much for looking after us and doing some wonderful camera work. We very much appreciate it. Enjoy. Remember, this is meant to be fun and enjoyable. And we will be back in about 2 or 3 weeks on how we do the stitching. And look after yourself, stay well, and happy stitching.
Cheers, bye.